The school board meeting will begin in 1 minute. Please take your seats. Again, the school board meeting will begin in 1 minute. The school board meeting will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. The school board meeting will begin in 5 minutes.
I now call to order the January 10th, 2023 meeting of the Marion County School Board. Vice Chair Thrower, will you please read our commitment statement?
It would be my pleasure. We are the Marion County School District Leadership Team. When we come together to work, we are efficient, effective, and productive. Our three most important characteristics are dedicated, transparent, and individually responsible. To work well together, we must demonstrate respect, confront reality, and be accountable. We will always put students first, and we will leave a legacy of success.
Thank you. For the courtesy of those listening to the meeting, I'm requesting everyone in the audience to please remove their hats and turn off their electronic devices or put them on vibrate. Later in the meeting, up to 30 minutes will be provided for individuals to address the board on matters concerning the operation of Marion County School System or the school board only. Presentations to the board are limited to 5 minutes and are televised. If you wish to address the board regarding a regular agenda item or matters on which the board customarily takes action, you must first complete a peach form located in the lobby. If you wish to address the board regarding a public hearing or a student discipline matter, please complete a lime green form. These forms must be fully completed and received by our board clerk right up here, no later than 5:40 p.m. The procedures applicable for each one are on a separate sheet. Board clerk, please call the roll.
Mrs. Allison Campbell, District 1.
Here.
Mrs. Lori Conrad, District 2.
Here.
Mr. Eric Cummings, District 3.
Here.
Mrs. Nancy Thrower, District 4.
Here.
Dr. Sarah James, District 5.
Here.
Dr. Diane Gullett, Superintendent.
Here.
Mr. Jeremy Powers, School Board Attorney.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Gullett, will you please introduce a member of your team who's going to introduce some terrific people for us?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Great to see you this evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Danielle Livengood, who is our Director for Secondary Curriculum Instruction and Digital Learning, and she has some very special guests with us today, and she will be introducing our 2023 Sunshine State Scholars for our district. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Gullett, Board Chair Mrs. Campbell, Vice Chair Mrs. Thrower, Board Members Dr. James, Mrs. Conrad, Reverend Cummings, Attorney Powers, and Board Clerk Mrs. Martinez-Lopez. I'm so excited to be here tonight to present to you the 2022-2023 Sunshine State Scholars. I will give you all of their names, and I'd like to tell you how the students got to this point. They were they were recommended by their principal and their leadership team because they met a special criteria. They are all junior class status, so they're all our juniors, and they all are interested in the field of science, technology, engineering, and or mathematics, so basically our STEM-related studies. They all have a minimum of a 3.9 GPA, and they have all participated in 25 hours at least of community service. And importantly, it's exciting to recognize our students that are involved in our advanced studies programs. They all have taken dual enrollment classes in mathematics or science, or advanced placement courses, advanced technology and or career courses, and or our ACE or our International Baccalaureate Mathematics and Science courses. So they have a very tough schedule. And as you will see tonight, we have a student that is on his way to Westport to participate in a tournament. They are competing at Forest High School. So we're going to hurry so he is not late to that game, but he is going to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. So I'd like to recognize Julian Hollis from Bellevue High School. Step forward, please. Olivia Bittinger from Dunellen High School. Devi Sharma from Forest High School, Rishi Shakib from Vanguard High School, and Caleb Lombardo from Westport High School. Two of these students will move forward, move to the state level, and that will be Caleb Lombardo and Olivia Bittinger. They will be recognized at a state level event in April, and they competed, if you will, in an interview process with a STEM business member here in our community. So we're incredibly proud of these students, and I know we were going to want a picture of them, but before we do so, I'd like Caleb to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board, let's go ahead and head down and take a picture real quick before we even greet them. We got to get Caleb on the pitch.
Yes. And then Rishi has tennis, but that's tomorrow. So it just shows how well-rounded they are, and they're still maintaining an incredibly strong schedule. Oh, go ahead. Do one thing on it.
Anybody else?
They're all, yes, yes.
Kevin, that was...
Thank you for being here. Thank you. So they will email us, they will email
As they all head to their seats and we're getting back in order, thank you to these amazing students and all the diligent work that you're putting forth, as well as their terrific principals who came in support of them tonight. We really appreciate all that you do. You are why we're here. All of you students helping every student succeed is our whole purpose. And so we're so grateful for all the work that you're putting in and all of your amazing principals that came here to support you as well. And Caleb, go get them. Thanks, families. Thank you, parents. We really, really appreciate it. Your students couldn't do what they do without you. Your support matters. Terrific. What a wonderful way to start meetings. I love that so much. Okay, board, the next part of our agenda actually is something that's a little new for us because our new board policy says that we do not have to approve donations in advance of the money actually getting to the locations. So what we did want to do as a board, though, is to ensure that we recognize those who have given. And so in the board packet and in the information on board docs, it has very detailed information about dollar amounts and so forth. But I did want to include some special thanks to all of these different organizations that I will list here in just a moment. Wanted to first say that the monetary total of all of these donations is $54,968.44, and the tangible donation, that would be to goods and services, is $5,233 for an overall total of little more than $60,000 that all of these different organizations have contributed. And so I'll read them off just because we want to publicly thank them, and certainly, board, if we can also do a thank you collectively. Taking the time to recognize donations sent from several gracious individuals and organizations. The Omega Psi Phi Fraternity and Dr. N.H. Jones Parent Organization recently donated to Dr. N.H. Jones Elementary School. The Aristocrats of Spruce Creek and Pamela Brown donated to Dunellen Elementary. Ocala Electric Utility donated to East Marion Elementary. The Marion County Hospital District and the American Online Giving Foundation had donations to Forest High School. Rack Room Shoes made a donation to Hillcrest School. American Legion Veterans Memorial Post 347 donated to Legacy Elementary. Salon Hartwell for its donation to Marion Technical College. Peggy McGee for a donation to Osceola Middle School. Cannon Law Firm and Aqua Pure Water and Sewage Service LLC for their donations to Silver River Museum. The Martial Arts Center for its donation to South Ocala Elementary, and the Puck Puggy chapter of the National Society for Daughters of the American Revolution for its donation to Stanton Weirsdale Elementary. Thank you so much to all of these wonderful individuals and community organizations for their generosity to our schools and our community. And with this being the very first time, I'll just offer the thanks. Normally we'll put this off on another board member and say, please, would you offer our thanks to the community? Again, this is our first time we're doing it this way. Because board policy now says that we do not have to approve them, this actually gets the money in the hands of the organizations and schools gets the money in the hands of the schools much more quickly, and they're not waiting on us to approve them. So that's an amazing step in policy, but thank you again to all those who have contributed. We certainly could not do what we do without the generous support of sponsors and those in our community who help us financially to just every dollar matters. Okay, moving on, Superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening again. I recommend approval of the agenda for the January 10th, 2023 school board meeting with the materials in the board packet, those materials distributed to board members at the meeting, and the audio recording included as part of the official record of the meeting, with the exception of items D16.1, D16.2, D16.3, D16.4, D16.5, D16.6, and D16.7 that have been placed under discussion, and item C13.3 that has been pulled and placed under discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. May I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation?
Motion to approve the meeting agenda.
Motion by Vice Chair Thrower.
Second.
Second by Dr. James. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the September 13th, 2022 school board meeting?
So move.
Motion by Reverend Cummings.
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Thrower. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the September 15th, 2022 administrative briefing and work session?
Motion.
Motion by Dr. James.
Second.
Second by Ms. Conrad. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 27th, 2022 school board meeting?
Motion to approve the September 27th minutes.
Motion by Vice Chair Thrower.
Second.
Second by Reverend Cummings. Are there any additions or corrections to these minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. I will now ask the school board's attorney to explain the rules governing persons who wish to address the school board today. Attorney Powers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In compliance with Section 286.0114 of Florida statutes, the school board has adopted uniform procedures for public speakers who wish to speak at this evening's meeting, either regarding one of today's agenda items or a matter relating to the operations of the school district. These procedures will ensure that the public has a reasonable opportunity to be heard on school board and school district matters. A written summary of these procedures is available from the table in the lobby. Public speaker forms are also located on that table. The completed forms were due to the school board's clerk no later than 5:40 p.m. This evening's speakers will be called prior to the business portion of the school board's meeting in the order of receipt by the school board clerk. Before you begin speaking, please state your name for the record and spell your last name. Each speaker will have 5 minutes of time. However, if there are more than 5 persons who wish to speak, the board may seek consensus to limit each speaker's time to 3 minutes. When the speaker has 1 minute remaining, the speaker will receive a visual notice to complete his or her comments. Speakers may not yield their time to other people. Speakers and meeting attendees are expected to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. Therefore, verbal attacks and profanity are strictly prohibited. Pursuant to the procedures for public comments, item 6, speakers are not to identify specific individuals other than themselves or their child unless the statement is provided 24 hours in advance. The board is here to listen to your comments only. You may be directed to an administrator staff member following the conclusion of your comments for further assistance to address your concerns. If there are matters dealing with student discipline, including expulsions, they will be scheduled at the conclusion of the televised portion of this meeting. Parents may address the board regarding a discipline matter at that time. To ensure student privacy, only a parent or guardian may use a student's first or last name. Identifying references to or identification of other students and/or their families are also strictly prohibited. A public speaker's speech does not reflect the endorsement, sponsorship, position, or expression of the school district. Thank you for your attention to the board's requirements. Chair, that concludes my explanatory remarks.
Thank you, Attorney Powers. Ms. Martinez-Lopez, do we have any speakers this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair. Emily Burgess.
My name is Emily Burgess, last name Burgess. Did I need to spell my first name?
No, you're fine.
I'm a teacher for Marion County Public Schools at Liberty Middle School, and my son attends Hammett Bowen Elementary School. He is in a self-contained ASD classroom and was also part of the Marion County after-school program at the school as well. However, he has recently been removed from the program. My son has autism, he is nonverbal, not potty trained, and you will usually find him stimming back and forth. He is also kind, easygoing, and takes a little longer than others to understand and get used to routine, but he does like and thrive on routine. My son may be a little different, but he is not less. He attended the Marion County After School Program, or MAP, at Hammett Bowen for the entire 21-22 school year, and we had no issue. At the beginning of the school year, I received a call from the Marion County After School Coordinator who knew my contract hours ended at 3 and asked me to pick my son up at 3:30 daily. I informed them that I would do my best, but I also coach at my school, and during the volleyball season, I would not be able to get him until closer to 4. I intended on coaching basketball as well at my school, but because of MAP, I was unable to take that position. I was not being prorated for picking my son up early either. I was doing what I was asked because I was grateful for having Marion County After School Program for my son. My son thrives on routine, but his routine for MAP was not always the same. Some days he was coming in with other students, some days it was later, some days it was 45 minutes after everyone else. Some days he stayed in the hallway, some days he was in the cafeteria with everyone else, and every now and then someone would take him to a sensory room on site. Nothing was ever consistent for him. On November 1st, there was a meeting held with the MAP team, the behavior team, and myself. We discussed a plan of action to help my son and talk about some things to try for him for the next few weeks. Unfortunately, things were still not very consistent with illnesses, Thanksgiving break, and winter break. On Thursday, January 5th, I had a phone conversation with the Marion County after-school coordinator who informed me that my son only had 2 weeks left in the program and that we would have to find other accommodations after school for him. Because my son did not rise to their occasion, he was being removed. My son is just one student in one of the 5 self-contained units at Hammett Bowen. He is not the only one on the southwest side of town who is self-contained and in need of an after-school program. The policies of the Marion County after-school program directly discriminate against a very specific group of Marion County students. It discriminates against those who are in self-contained ASD and IND classrooms. There is only one elementary school in all of Marion County that offers ESC after-school programs, and that is Maplewood. However, I live on the southwest side of town and would be unable to make the drive in the mornings and still arrive to my school on time. Also, I work right next door, which allows me to be close if help is needed, while Maplewood is 25 minutes away. My son also has an absolutely incredible team at Hammett Bowen that he adores. I am asking you to place ESC extended after-school programs on the southwest side of town and help students like my son. Those students and families have the right and deserve equal treatment with equal after-school program options. Programs where parents do not have to be concerned that their child will be removed because they cannot fit into the impossible policies. I am asking you as a parent, an educator, and advocate to be the change that Marion County desperately needs for our special needs community, to put an ESC after-school program on the southwest side of town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess. Dr. Gullett, would you like to have her speak with?
Yes, then, Madam Chair, I know Ms. Eubanks is not here, but Dr. Hembrook is back there standing. If you would turn, then Dr. Hembrook will be sure to have a few minutes with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess.
Thank you.
Ms. Martinez-Lopez, are there any other speakers?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much.
Excuse me.
May I have a motion to approve consent agenda items C8.1 through C15.1 with the exception of items D16.1, D16.2, D16.3, D16.4, D16.5, D16.6, and D16.7 that have been placed under discussion, and item C13.3 that has been pulled and placed under discussion. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Thrower, second by Reverend Cummings. As there's no discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item D16.1, may I have a motion to approve the grant application American Rescue Plan, ARP, Intensive After School and Weekend Academies. May I have a motion?
So move.
Motion by Reverend Cummings.
Second.
Second by Ms. Conrad. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to say something.
Go ahead, Ms. Thrower.
Thank you. I just want to share that I'm sure we all continue to be grateful for the grant monies that are provided from the American Rescue Plan to offer intensive after-school and weekend academies. It's very well known that there has been learning loss pretty much across the board, not just with Marion County students and quite a few of them, but also across the country. So these dollars are being put to good use to catch our kids up and provide innovative opportunities that hopefully the parents will be able to avail themselves of.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vice Chair Thrower, for those comments. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item 16.2, discussion 16.2. May I have a motion to approve the grant application American Rescue Plan ARP supplemental programming? May I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Dr. James.
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Thrower. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. D 16.3, may I have a motion to approve the grant application Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, known as ESSER 3, instructional materials. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve grant application.
Motion by Ms. Conrad,
Second.
second by Reverend Cummings. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. D 16.4, may I have a motion to approve the grant application Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, known as ESSER 2, supplemental programming.
So move.
Motion by Reverend Cummings,
Second.
second by Dr. James. Is there any discussion?
I have something.
Yes, Vice Chair Thrower.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to point out, all of these ESSER funds are providing an incredible amount of money, and in this one in particular, it's over $8 million. So it's big money to provide big support to help our kids, and it is for the direct benefit of our students for all of the transportation and curriculum. I got ahead of myself a little bit here, and I just missed my note on one of these is going for all of our summer learning opportunities as well. That is this one, okay. And that has been so well received by virtually everybody. The teachers that have taught during the last couple of summers have really seemed to enjoy it. The kids have certainly benefited from it. I've heard great feedback from families. So I get the feeling that we're going to be missing this $8,744,836 going forward. And as a board, we're going to need to be mindful of what we can do to continue to provide really high-quality summer programming for our kids, because it's needed. That's all I have.
Thank you, Vice Chair Thrower. That's absolutely correct. With a price tag like that for the enriching summer school programs that we have coming up and what we've just had in 2022, but this price tag is for 2023. I'm really excited about what the team is putting together for summer school 2023, but then the money runs out. So we just have to be mindful of what that looks like in 2024 and beyond. So thank you for those comments. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item D 16.5, may I have a motion to approve the renew bid 6907 GM for tree trimming and removal services? May I have a motion?
So move.
Motion by Reverend Cummings,
Second.
second by Dr. James. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Chair, I need to recuse myself from this item,
Okay.
and I have submitted the correct paperwork to Ms. Martina Lopez.
Thank you, Ms. Conrad. So with that, any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 4-0. Item D 16.6, may I have a motion to approve the job description for Coordinator 1 Social Work Services?
Motion to approve the job description for Coordinator 1 Social Work Services.
Motion by Vice Chair Thrower,
Second.
second by Ms. Conrad. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item D 16.7, may I have a motion to approve the job description for Coordinator 1 Psychological Services?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Conrad,
Second.
second by Dr. James. Is there any discussion? And I'll actually just mention, I will discuss at this point if no one else had anything else. These two items were placed under discussion because they were something that didn't make our original agenda because of the expediency that we're needing to hire these positions. We did just have conversation about it in our most recent work session. We knew they were coming, but the reason these two items, both 16.6 and 16.7, have been placed under discussion is sheer transparency to ensure that we had the ability to weigh in on them if we needed. So with that, if there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to approve the non-represented salary and wage schedules for 2022-2023 fiscal year? We have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Dr. James,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Thrower. Reverend Cummings, I understand you pulled item C 13.3 and you wish to have further discussion.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. This non-represented approval or pay raise, that's what it is, for 2022, 2023, is on the docket tonight for us to approve. And I understand in this that this would go back and be retroed to our employees from July 1 to the present. So when I looked at that, I asked some questions that I found some interesting in my inquiry, interesting information. Because of our employees who've worked that time during that time frame, there's a group that will not be retroactive. And I don't know if that's an intended consequence of a district or an unintended consequence. When I did further inquiry, I asked, is there a policy? There is no policy. When I did further inquiry, I asked, is there a procedure? There is no procedure on this. So I'm having an issue with why we aren't retroacting. For instance, scenario, if a person had worked from that time frame up to Christmas break and they decide to resign at Christmas break, then that person would not be eligible for this pay raise, even though they worked the time frame of the contract. In further inquiry, I asked, I was told that we kind of follow the same procedure that we did with MEA, MESP, IUPAT, the same thing. So if that's the case, we would have retroactively paid those folk. So I need to have some better understanding if is that what the board's intent is, to not pay those folk? Is what are we doing?
Is that something that Ms. Boston-Ellis could speak to? Or
I didn't speak to Ms. Boston. I spoke to payroll on this one. I don't know if Ms. Boston-Ellis can speak on it.
So just so I'm understanding the question, Reverend Cummings, I just want to make sure I understand. So if a person resigned from their position, your question is that if we were to then go back and pay them even after they've resigned, or is the scenario that they they resigned the specific position, but they now have moved to another position? I'm trying to.
If they resigned, if they left the district.
Separated from service.
Separated from service.
Right.
When they worked the contracted time frame, is what I'm understanding.
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
We have, as we reviewed in our last board meeting, and honestly, every board meeting, we do have a decent amount of retirements and or resignations. And I think what he's speaking to is, if you were a teacher who resigned, you had done a full 30 years of service and resigned at Christmas, and this was approved now, and not a teacher, that's the wrong.
A represented person.
A represented person. But if you had retired at December 31, then you were not going to be retroactively paid for this amount of time. That's what you're bringing. That's what you're
retire or separate. Just
sure.
Separate it.
But I think sometimes we think, oh, well, that person chose to leave the job. But at a minimum, someone who has retired has served potentially our district for a significant amount of time, and you're bringing up a valid point.
Because my thing is, this person has worked that time frame in good faith without, we did our contracts, we did our negotiations early this year, very early, thank God. And so now.
That will become a habit, hopefully.
Yes, we expect that. But now, because this person left, they're not being entitled to those funds. So I'm not sure. And there isn't a policy that I could find or a procedure. So is that an intended consequence or unintended consequence? And are we going to continue with that stance?
Dr. Gullett, perhaps Ms. Morant could speak to the logistics of how that, because perhaps it's even possible that someone has separated from their employment and we don't even have a current address. Like, I'm not certain the logistics of how, if we were to approve something like that, what that would look like.
Good afternoon, Chair Campbell, Board, Dr. Gullett. So First, I'll share in our MEA, MESP, and IUPAT contracts, there's language, they're almost identical, but I'll just read one because they all have the same sentiment. And it's an employee who has separated from employment with the district prior to the date of school board approval of a new and/or revised collective bargaining agreement shall forfeit any retroactive pay or other benefit provided in such new and/or revised collective bargaining agreement. So that's listed in all of our 3 contracts. So while, as you mentioned, there's no policy or procedure, we mirror that same language or sentiment with our non-represented as well, the same way we do with different benefits that are afforded to our folks who are in unions. We afford those same benefits to folks who are non-represented as well.
So, thank you, Ms. Moret.
Yes, sir.
We mirror that. However, those groups have a collective bargaining unit. This is the unrepresented bargaining unit. So why are we mirroring them if there is not a representation of that? Is there a policy or procedure that says that we have to mirror that for this unrepresented group?
No, there is no policy or procedure. It is practice, but same way on, I don't want to say, not saying this is bad, but the same way we're now viewing it as bad, we give the benefit of, for example, like Marion County After School. That's bargain that employees get a discount, but we afford that to our non-represented as well. So as practice, we have allowed both sets of employees to receive the benefits and also this contract language as well.
Vice Chair.
Yes, as I think this through, I want to think that nothing that makes employees feel like they're not getting what they worked for and deserved would not be intentional unless it is something that is bargained. So it is very clear for our represented employees how to navigate this. I'm thinking about if we were to go with retroactive pay for our non-represented employees, how that would, in my mind, if we were going to do something like that, then it would definitely need to become part of policy, because I don't want to do something one way one year and then do something different another year. I'm thinking about employees that say they did shelter duty and then retired or separated from service that are not represented. And sometimes the shelter duty pay lags. Would they still get that shelter duty money, for example? There's more in play here.
Yeah, they've all been paid. I definitely
I know
verified that.
Yes, I know they have
There's
this.
some years that they weren't.
But there's been
Right,
plenty of years
right.
where they weren't.
But because this is something for 2022, 2023, all of our shelter employees have been paid. I verified that earlier. Yeah,
Yes, I'm
right.
sure you wanted to make that clear, but my point is that hasn't always been the case in the past, and I don't know what happened with those employees that then retired at Christmas, that then shelter duty pay didn't come out till, say, January. So it's a bit of a slippery slope. I hear what you're saying too, Chair Campbell, is how do we find these people? And what if we don't find these people? I feel like something's been pointed out here that we need to think about addressing and having policy for. But as it stands now, I feel like the only thing we really have to fall back on at this moment in time is past practice. Those are some of my thoughts out loud.
Chair?
Yes, Dr. James.
I do just want to offer, and Ms. Morant can confirm, but we send them a W-2. So someone who retires or resigns before January 15th still gets sent a W-2 for their tax filing. So we have a way to get them a W-2, which I would then argue we have that same way to mail them a paper check, which if it doesn't make it to their home or they choose not to cash, is no loss to the district. But there certainly is a modality which we use for future communication.
And my reason for bringing this forward is I didn't like the answers I was getting. I didn't like the answer that there's no policy, there's no procedures, we just do this as a practice. And I understand as a practice, but I know people get sued because of stuff that people do as a practice. And either we need to put a policy or procedure in place so that when we call and ask that question, they can say, hey, we're dictated by policy number or procedural number, whatever, versus just saying that there's a procedure and then there really isn't a procedure. And then also looking out for our staff who, in good faith, did the job and are being penalized. Because think about it, we approved the MEA, we did the IUPAT, we did theirs a few months ago. So whose fault is it? Is it we penalizing the employee because we're not bringing it forward until this time? Because that's what it seems to me.
So I think, Reverend Cummings, it speaks to a larger potential policy conversation that we need to address in rulemaking. Now that we have just approved all of our policies, updated policies, because of what you just said. It's not just a lack of policy on the issue of the retroactive pay. It's a lack of policy on when non-represented employee salary increases are considered. Because we obviously have collective bargaining agreements with each of the unions, so we know those happen when they happen based on the timeline that happens among those groups. However, I don't believe, I'm trying to do a quick policy search, I don't believe we have specific policy on anything to do with non-representative salary and wage schedules. Am I correct on that? Or maybe because it seems like there's a greater policy conversation that's not just the retroactive piece. I think that perhaps if we do want a policy to mirror what our collective bargaining agreements say, terrific, we have language already to go by. I appreciate certainly the dialogue and bringing it up, but I think it does speak to a greater policy that we need just in general for a whole group of people that we don't currently have policy related to their salary and wage schedules. Attorney Powers?
I would only recommend that if we are doing anything for the non-represented employees that is different than that for the represented employees, we could run into some trouble with the fact that we are penalizing someone for being a represented employee or penalizing someone for being an unrepresented employee. And so to the degree that that stands, treating the two groups relatively equally is most likely a consideration the board would have to take into account. Now, I think the conversation might be different if we were talking about the fact that for represented employees, they get this back pay benefit for those people who are separated at, December 31st or whatever. But for non-represented employees, they don't. So if one of the two groups is being treated differently, we probably need to look at that much more closely than if the groups are treated equally, and the question is just, do we need to be overall making a policy change? This would be important to a number of people who are at that point that they are separated from service at retirement phase, not just because of getting the extra few months of slightly increased salary, but also that for retirement calculations, those go into, your last few years of service mean more. So that could impact those things for people as well. So it's certainly something that needs some further discussion or consideration if we're going to alter anything. But if we're not going to alter anything, if we do, I think that whether it is policy or procedure, so long as it's consistent from year to year, there's no magical reason why it has to be policy as opposed to procedure, so long as it doesn't, vacillate and alter.
Madam Chair, and let me say for the record, I am in favor of this increase. I just this was the time to have this conversation in regards to this, so that we can be consistent, so that we can do the right thing. And we say we care about our people. We say this stuff all the time. I want the district to be sound in what we do across the board. And but this is a group that is not represented. This is a group that is not represented. So we have to represent them. Yeah.
Well, and among those considerations are that a represented entity, the union can come forward and say, we want to negotiate this piece for our employees. So they have the ability to do that as one of their priorities. Right. The unrepresented employees probably don't, unless it comes through the representative side, and we're treating them the same as the represented side. So, that's a consideration as well.
Right.
So, Board, to Attorney Powers' point, actually, this doesn't have to be an element of policy that the board would be responsible for, but it could be something that we ask Dr. Gullett to put into procedure for her team to work on. Dr. Gullett, do you already have something in the works, perhaps, maybe?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Great conversation. I concur with the attorney. And I would consult with our labor law attorney and experts because the notion of employment classes comes to my mind and having disparate treatment. And we have a very broad, non-represented group. And in some of those, many categories are closely resembling others that are represented. And so without getting in a lot of details, I think you all understand that. I'd want to be really mindful of all those moving pieces the attorney has referenced and get some expert opinion on that so we don't have unintended consequences on doing anything prematurely. But great conversation. Thank you.
So, Board, are we comfortable with perhaps moving something into procedure that Dr. Gullett and her team works on rather than us needing to pull this into rulemaking and policy making at some point? Vice Chair.
Yes, Chair, and for me, I just want it to be fair across the board. If, whatever we're doing for our represented employees, mirroring is important. In this case, it doesn't help our non-represented employees at this moment, but it doesn't mean it won't in the future. And so I am comfortable with moving it towards procedure, and also with the intention that we're going to get this worked out. We don't want this to keep coming up. We want there to be clarity, and we want it to be consistent, and that's just how we do it, and we move on to the next challenge we have to solve.
That's one other thing, Madam Chair. When someone asks me, if an employee asks me, why am I not getting it, I would like to be able to say, because there is a procedure or there is a policy. Not for me to say, hey, what's the procedure, what's the policy, and they're saying, well, we're doing what we do with it. That ain't flying.
Great. Dr. Gullett.
I think, thank you, Madam Chair. It may be important to pose this reminder as well that we are updating a number of procedures based on the recently adopted policies. So certainly a natural time to do that as well. Just want to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morant, for that information.
Yes, thank you,
well.
Ms. Morant. Is there? Oh, yes, Ms. Conrad.
Ms. Morant, while you're at the podium, I wanted to get some clarification on the administrative salary schedule. The way that it's presented, it almost looks like it steps, so that if an administrator enters in to being an assistant principal and say they have 5 or 6 years experience, is it correct that that is their pay scale for now and forever? They don't increase their salary with their years of service? And if that's not correct, could you explain to me, how their salary is figured?
That is correct, and actually had some conversation today with Dr. Gullett. We are researching to see if there's any way to make some adjustments to that without.
Thank you very much. My concern has come up in visiting with administrators at schools, and before Christmas, I believe we lost 4 administrators at least. And I've been in the system here in Marion County for 27 years. I've never been aware of people leaving the system at that point in their career. And so I'm hearing they can cross county lines and make $10,000 more because they get credit for their years of service. And I just want to ensure that we are doing the best that we can to keep the people that we have. So thank you for answering that.
Chair, if I might add, I just want to elaborate on that point. They could leave and come back to Marion County Public Schools and make up that money as well. And so that is the concern, and that is among our leadership, is that, some of these principals have put in years and years and years and are making comparable salaries to principals who have worked just 1 or 2 years. And that disparity is not okay with me. And if that seasoned principal left and came back, they would be placed at a different place on that matrix. And I can understand that that would put an added stressor to us with our overall cost. of doing business, but acknowledging people's years of service and paying them accordingly is important to me as well.
I agree.
Thank you for the discussion, board, and I'll also mention that I, too, was asking specifically for the next time we look at these individuals, this non-represented group, that we also have comparative numbers from like districts and other districts around the state so that we can see what we look at that when we look at some of our represented folks, but we didn't have it when we saw it this time around. And so I also have asked for that, and I think that goes right in line with exactly everything that has been said. We want to make sure that we are comparable and competitive, yet very fair, as well as doing everything we possibly can to ensure our employees feel appreciated and valued in their paychecks. So with that, if there's no other discussion, all in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. Have some meeting reminders for us. A special administrative briefing and work session, a special one, is scheduled for January 17th, 2023 at 9 a.m. The purpose of this work session is to discuss the proposed instructional calendar for the 2023-2024 school year. The next administrative briefing and work session is scheduled on January 19th, 2023 at 9 o'clock a.m. The purpose of that work session is to discuss Achieve 2026 Goal 5 updates, family engagement, and school staffing plan ratios for 2023-2024 school year. The following administrative briefing and work session is scheduled for February 2nd, 2023. The purpose of the work session is to discuss student discipline and mental health support and risk assessment proposed internal audit plan. At this time, I would like to go into our board comments and committee reports, if you have any. So I will start with Ms. Martinez-Lopez. Is there anything from the board clerk?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Attorney Powers.
Yes, I just wanted to report back to the board that I have begun the process of working with the superintendent to discuss and negotiate regarding the upcoming contract. There's an expiration and the contract needs to be renewed. We've had initial discussions regarding that just between myself and the superintendent, and at that point, based on our prior practice and also what's in our policies and procedures, that's something that the board chair typically then takes forward, and then we bring to the board for vote and any comments or any discussions that may be held at that point, since that will all be done, in the sunshine. So I will be within the next week here forwarding you all individually some of the details of those items. However, we can't discuss those individually and then come back together as a group to discuss them formally, so without having done it in the sunshine. So I'll be giving you the materials that you will need, and then we can discuss at the time for voting, at which point we can then make any alterations that any board member should choose.
Thank you, Attorney Powers.
And I would welcome if the superintendent has anything that you wish to. If I covered that, we're good. So that's all.
Perfect. Well, going to Dr. Gullett. Dr. Gullett, do you have any comments for us?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I do have a few. As we all know, Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and I want to just say that I hope that our staff, our students take the time as a reminder of this important day and what Dr. King stood for. So I encourage our students to engage in service and learning. I think that's really important. So, and to respect and recognize the legacy that he left for us. I also want to say that January is National Mentoring Month. We've talked a lot about our mentors lately, and we are so grateful for those who already support our students and looking for more. We continue to encourage the need for more. Can't emphasize that enough, but really value and recognize the time and commitment and passion that our mentors provide to our students, and it doesn't go unnoticed. I do have an update for all of you with regard to the School Board Policy 8405. You may recall we talked about that previously, and this is the one that's called School Safety and Security, and I said I would give you an update. I met with my team, and I have a request of the board in just a moment, but I want to provide you an update as we talk about this community conversation and having diverse stakeholders together to help guide and ensure the safety of our students and our staff and all of our schools and our buildings. And so Mr. McFadden is going to lead this work, and I'll say that up front, and so that because there's going to be information coming out from Mr. McFadden shortly. But as an update, if you recall, I mentioned there are a number of representatives at minimum that are recommended in this policy that you adopted as a board. And so with regard to some of the categories such as building administrators and teachers and staff, in order to get to a place of fairness and having full recognition of voice, my recommendation, and talk to the team about it, is our building administrators would be represented by our principal of the year and our assistant principal of the year. And our teachers and staff would be represented by our teacher of the year and our rookie teacher of the year and our school-related employee of the year, because those are individuals that are already recognized as a district in those regards. So it provides sustainability, and it recognizes their voice and role in representing the groups that they represent, the employee groups they represent. We, as a team, came up with a lot of other different ways that we can have representation. Mr. McFadden was incredibly helpful in his background of knowledge with regard to law enforcement, and including fire marshal and other designees that are listed in this policy. But also the first group here is members of the board. So I have a twofold request of the board tonight. I need a representative of the board. And then my additional ask is to have broad scale representation from our community. I am requesting that each board member recommend a community member that would represent your district to sit on this committee as well. So that's my request with regard to policy 8405 and the work that we're very excited to start as soon as we have these members. And I don't know if you want to do that now or pause. I have one other item that's also going to be a request.
Let's go ahead and take that into discussion if you don't mind, board. Dr. Gullett has requested that we have a board member as a representative on this committee. And then obviously also, I believe, based on what you just said, Dr. Gullett, that Mr. McFadden will be sending us perhaps an email like what Ms. Martinez-Lopez has, or what we receive sometimes when we're doing the textbooks adoptions and when we submit community members to be a part of the committee, that we'll be receiving that communication from Mr. McFadden. So he'll be asking us all to submit the name and the contact information on the individual. And so that part I think we're clear on. Now we just have to have discussion about who the board member representative might be. Reverend Cummings.
Madam Chair, also, and I heard the superintendent say this, and I do want to be that board member. I'll say that up front. In hearing the superintendent state these stakeholders, I would also like to ask that we also include someone from transportation, that's a bus driver or bus aide, in that group, because they also too deal with schools and student safety as well, to consider that.
Certainly, thank you, Board Member Cummings. And the team, we had a group with Ms. Dobbins, Mr. Vianello, Mr. McFadden, Mr. Singletary, came up with a list that we would start with. And then we know that this is a very broad topic and will involve a lot of different subgroups. So each of those subgroups might take a look at, for example, at discipline. It might take a look at some transportation barriers, and the safety plan itself is a very small group that comes from this, that has very private information that can only have certain members on that subgroup. So I think transportation was discussed and will be part of that, but there'll be a lot of different subcommittees that'll involve a lot more people and a lot more voice.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I hope we'll also include our Above and Beyond Award recipient. I know we talked about Teacher of the Year and Principal of the Year and so on, but that will also, especially in this year, more technical services oriented person, which will be nice to have on there. I'm thinking about the board member representative maybe a little bit differently, and I would propose that our board chair serve. And I think my rationale for that is because when someone is nominated to be the board chair and they are elected or accepted unanimously, that is an honor, and it also is a tremendous responsibility. It's also a tremendous opportunity. And in this particular situation where the whole community is involved in this because the whole community is affected, I would lean towards having who is the chair of our school board be our representative.
Can I say something about that? And the reason I offered myself for this is because this is talking about school safety, and I bring to that position my experience from law enforcement so that's why I offer myself for that. And I think I have a little, I may have some more insight to some of the things that we'll be dealing with on that committee.
Other board members?
If I can.
Yes.
In the similar sentiment to Reverend Cummings, I would offer that as a previous school administrator, I would offer probably the most relative experience to dealing with an emergency on a campus. I've been a part of having a gun on a campus and what that looks like. And I've been a part of an Alice drill every single month for years and years. And so I would offer that I would certainly serve this board on that committee if that's what the board chose. And I think that those are strengths I would bring to that committee and perspective that I would be able to offer.
Do you have any thoughts?
No, I just want to reiterate that the strengths that we each have individually, would be representative on the board would be good, and that's a hard decision because we each bring something different to the table.
So I'll weigh in really quick, and then I'll let you, Vice Chair. So my thoughts are similar, actually, to Vice Chair Thrower's, except I wasn't thinking that it would be the chair. I actually was thinking of the vice chair. So let me take my chair hat off for just a moment. And we didn't plan this, trust me. But let me take my chair hat off for a moment and speak as your most recent vice chair. There's not much that vice chair does other than be the moral support and I mean, I'm not saying in the title of vice chair. You certainly do a lot as a board member, but in the title of vice chair, you serve at the pleasure of the chair in the chair's absence. But there are other things that the chair is responsible for, agenda review, signing all the contracts, all these other things that the chair does that the vice chair doesn't do. And so my recommendation, actually, I love the idea that Dr. Gullett is putting together a committee that already has the designees based on title and not based on individual. And if we were to follow that same suit, we would choose one of the two already unanimously selected people, whether it be chair or vice chair, and I'm leaning towards vice chair. Again, speaking as the most recent vice chair and understanding that that would have been a duty that I would have held. But having it in that role, to Ms. Conrad's point, we all have such strengths that are unique and different. And we also have that placement of a community member that very well may mirror us or have the same strengths that we have, if you're thinking creatively like I am, of who that committee member might be that we also recommend. So those were my thoughts, and I know Vice Chair Thrower had something else to say about it.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your confidence in me. This is not an easy decision because we all do bring something to the table, and that brings me back to my original point, that this whole topic affects our whole community. So we all have a stake in it. I am quite certain that any one of us, Board Member Conrad included, would do a fantastic job representing us. So then, therefore, what do we do? And so I was hoping that by saying, we would have the chair do it, that it's because that's the person that's representing us. But I hear you, Board Member Cummings. We have certainly looked to you and and leaned into your expertise because of your background with this. So that is a definite asset. There's also many other threads to this that all of us can, I'm sure, do a good job. So with that, I would say that we have a little bit of a dilemma here. And since I didn't know that this was going to be brought up tonight, maybe I just need a chance to think about it a little bit more too. This is big, and we want to make sure that, we're being deliberative.
I would agree that choosing an individual that could be pre-designated would provide structure for future boards. And I do applaud Dr. Gullett for moving in that direction with regard to the people our district has chosen in other facets. So I would be of the opinion, I think that would be appropriate. I would offer that taking a pause and coming back to this so that as a board we can digest whether chair or vice chair would be the most appropriate choice. I certainly don't want to feel pressured to make a decision in this moment.
Okay.
And for the comment, when the role of chair or vice chair, well, just last week we all just went through different assignments. And that wasn't based on chair or vice chair. That was based on we needed people in those positions to deal with that. The role of chair or vice chair is in relation to meetings, in relation to representation of the district in certain arenas. Has nothing to do with committees. So
can we revisit this in
I think we
future
can.
meeting?
So because I don't know that it's something we necessarily need to vote on, I think it's something we can come to consensus in one of our upcoming work sessions, and we have 2 next week. So is that something that we think we could work on, Attorney Powers and or Dr. Gullett, as you're both looking at each other?
Yes, unless you come to consensus, it is something we'll have to vote on as to appointment for committees.
Okay.
So,
but it isn't something necessarily that we have to
no.
choose tonight. Okay.
I mean, not to my knowledge.
Sure. So I know we're trying to get the committee up and running as the time is of the essence.
Well, let me clarify. Since this is a committee, we would not have to necessarily vote. The chair has the ability to appoint.
No, that's not policy any longer.
Not within
so that killed the. That's right. Okay.
That's why we did what we did the other day.
That's right.
We all had consensus.
So you're right. So we have to come back to consensus.
And we're back to no, the chair doesn't have that authority. So,
So can we decide maybe that we will discuss it in one of our work sessions next week, and if we don't come to consensus, we can move it to a meeting agenda?
If it comes to that.
If it comes to that, certainly. I'm just offering all solutions.
We can, and although I don't want to, I don't want to insert any complications here, it would also be an option, at least, if time is of the essence to get started, that there is provisionally an assignment tonight of one board member and then a consensus further discussion, in case something needs to happen in the next week or two, for example. And then, that person can be sort of a placeholder at least, but then also collect information. And then that would be something that another board member could be chosen at a later time. So essentially it would be a partially shared duty, so long as the two didn't communicate with one another directly. So initially start with one board member, move to another, but that's at least an option.
Mm-hmm. How fast do you need a decision, Dr. Gullett?
And I don't want to put any pressure on the board, but we are eager, as you might imagine, to get this started. I could recommend perhaps that if each board member could submit the name of the representative, we could get this going. Mr. McFadden can move forward with, he needs to send letters out to all the stakeholders that will be involved. But since this is a district committee, I certainly wanted the board to be at the table right from the beginning. So however the board chooses to go, I certainly understand it's a difficult decision. And I'm not done. I have one more request, so I don't want to.
Do you have your first meeting set?
We do not. I wanted this conversation to occur first. since I met with the team and we're ready to move forward. So we could notify everyone, we can move forward with that. If you could submit the names, then in the meantime, we can let you know, okay, we're ready to do this in the next few weeks, and we will certainly need an answer without any additional pressure, but we can certainly move forward with that
Mr.
regard.
McFadden will be sending us an email following this meeting, and copying Ms. Martinez Lopez, obviously, and whoever all needs to know, so we can ensure that we submit those community names. So definitely be thinking about that person, because that is where we're going to go with that.
And that person needs to reside in our district.
Not
the community-
necessarily. Not necessarily.
Vote countywide.
Right.
But I think, can you clarify the intention with that, Dr. Gullett?
Thank you, Board Member James. That's really up to the board. The intent is to have broad representation of our community. So however the board decides to go with that, but I want it to, because this is a district endeavor, it's a district committee, provide the opportunity to the board to have a representative, much like if you think about ICROC. And that has worked really well to have a very diverse group of thinkers, and they have been a great body of support to our district, and thank you. Yeah.
So
I would just like to bring up Board Policy 0155, just so we're all on the same page. The school board may establish committees and subcommittees as the need arises. The board shall designate the standing committees. Committees of board members shall, when specifically charged to do so by the board, conduct studies and make recommendations to the board. Whenever a majority of a committee and/or subcommittee meets for any prearranged discussion of public business of that committee or subcommittee, it shall abide by the Sunshine Law. The law requires the committee or subcommittee give public notice of each meeting, as well as prepare, file, and maintain minutes of the proceedings. Such minutes shall also be available for inspection by the public. Now, this does say committees of board members. However, we do have board members who are included in this, and with textbook adoption policies and all kinds of things like that, there has been discussion in the case law that indicates that they would need to, that those meetings broadly either need to be open to the public as sunshine meetings and advertised as such, or the business and recommendation, if it's not a board member on the committee, or if there's just one board member on the committee, those recommendations come back to the board for a full discussion, not just a rubber stamp vote. So, in other words, if the committee makes a recommendation, it shouldn't just be voted up or down by the board when the board decides to choose its action as to a particular item. The board would have to actually hear from the committee, have an opportunity for public comment, and discuss in order to make the changes or decisions they made.
Madam Chair, and hearing that we're trying to move this thing down the road, I will offer that we also, because sometimes you submit a name and the person doesn't want to do it, I think we may need to submit two names, primary person or alternate for that. And then as far as selecting this person, I don't want this to be a House Speaker deal where we're trying to vote 17 times to figure out who's going to do it. We need to go ahead and move forward in the next work session or whatever and get that taken care of.
Quick question, Dr. Gullett, for the person that represents us, do you have, what kind of time commitment? Are you thinking once a month? What kind of schedule are we looking at for these meetings so we can make sure our representative is available to put that time in?
That's a great question. Board Member Conrad, we had some initial conversation about that, and it might be once a month, but we want to be really clear and genuine in bringing the group together. I intended to be there at the beginning just to open that up and sort of provide a framework with where we're going, and really let the committee decide what makes most sense. Because again, we're going to need to have subcommittees already with the lists that we have, and I haven't read them all, but we're looking at quite a few people in the original committee, and then we're going to need to break out into subcommittees again. But we're going to let that process unfold publicly and with that group of stakeholders through there. So I would say I would plan on once a month, but it could take much more time than that as the participants choose which subcommittee to serve on, because then they'll come back and report back to the group. We want this to be, this is not a short-term committee. This is intended to have genuine, honest conversation about a lot of the pieces that impact safety. So we know that that's going to take some time. I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm just, right, I think we need to let this go where it needs to go. This is the beginning of a journey.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to say something else?
Just one
Vice
last
Chair
thing. You know, the longer we sit here and the longer we talk about it and the more it percolates in my mind, I would just put out there that why does it even have to just be one of us? You know, it's going to be publicly noticed anyway. And doesn't it mean just as much to you as it does to me, as it does to you, as it does to you? Because with our schedules, there may be times that we couldn't go. And then what? You know, we have to get someone to go in our place. So I don't know, I just offer that up too for as we reflect on this, and we are not kicking any can down the road. You know, we're going to make a decision on this next week, for sure.
If I may, Madam Chair, to add to Vice Chair Thrower's point, it does say in policy, members of the board. It's written in plural terms that the board has adopted, so.
I'm not sure I would want to
just
sit this out if I wasn't the person.
Attorney Powers, is there anything to add on that?
No, I wasn't quite clear as to what you're talking about, where it says members of the board, what?
It's in the policy. It actually has members, plural.
8405.
8405, right.
Representatives from members of the board is the first designation.
So members is plural. So perhaps we don't have to come to consensus on who the designee would be, but I do think it would be helpful for the committee to always have one person that they sent the meeting notices to, or whatever, one person that would then join a subcommittee and if necessary or whatever. So I do think it potentially does still warrant additional conversation of us next week, but certainly based on policy, it doesn't appear that it limits the number of us that can certainly be present and in attendance during these publicly noticed meetings.
That's correct. I will also point out Board Policy 0149.2, board member participation in committee meetings. The school board believes the involvement of stakeholders in the formulation of recommendations to the superintendent and the board is essential to good decision-making. To ensure the presence of board members at committee meetings does not unduly influence or stifle committee deliberations, their attendance shall be in an observer status. Board members may participate in committee discussions as members of the public. Statements by board members which reflect personal opinion will be clearly identified as such to committee members. So when this committee is formed, regardless of whether there's one or all five board members there, we would need to exercise some caution to make sure this doesn't become simply just a discussion among board members with an audience of public participation.
Understood.
Okay.
Yes,
So, yes, lots of considerations. So with that, board, I believe, why don't we move that to next Thursday's work session, that we will have our decision that we discuss at that time. And I think we probably have a rather lengthy agenda that day, but we'll still throw this little item into that as a board comment if the meeting notice has already gone out. But in the interim, Mr. McFadden will send us the email so we can go ahead and submit names and or name plus alternate for that committee. And Dr. Gullett, you said you weren't finished.
I apologize. I've taken a lot of time tonight. One additional request tonight or in the future. We would love to have representation from the board. The Marion County Veterans Council has asked for board representation. As you are all aware, I've been meeting with a number of the veterans groups, and they're looking forward to Colonel Ham, as you know, as the president, and looking forward to representation if the board so chooses.
Terrific. We did have a member, I don't remember which one of you, sorry, who is serving on the Friends of the Veterans Park Foundation. Terrific, Ms. Conrad. that would be a wonderful symbiotic just transition, and if we're all in consensus on that, since Ms. Conrad is doing the Veterans Park Foundation, you would be on the Veterans Council as well for us?
That's fine.
We're all in agreement on that one? Terrific. Thank you, Ms. Conrad.
Thank you.
That one was much.
We accomplished something.
That one was much simpler than the other. Okay, terrific. So moving on, let's see, that was Dr. Gullett. Now I'll go over to Dr. James.
Good evening to all of you who were here tonight and those watching online. I want to begin by thanking all of our employees for their hard and diligent work they are putting in each and every day to make Marion County Public Schools the best school district. As I continue to spend time with our employees in their space, I am constantly reminded of just how vibrant, hardworking, and just really smart they are. Just this morning, after I dropped my daughter off at her elementary school and left to head to my next car drop-off, I saw a Marion County school bus that had pulled over and had their hazards on. I immediately was concerned that there may be an issue, and I pulled over behind the bus to offer assistance. I guess you could say I put on my administrator hat. If I'm being honest, I was concerned that there may have been a behavior issue on the bus that the bus driver was struggling with. When I approached the bus, I was genuinely pleased to discover that the bus driver was simply early for her pickup and was patiently waiting for her student. It was such a refreshing reminder of the amazing job our transportation department is doing each and every day to support our students on their educational journey. Over our holiday break, I had 2 different opportunities to work with individuals within our community, as well as our superintendent, to learn more about programs and potential opportunities we have for growth and expansion of programs to offer the students of Marion County Public Schools. I have to tell you, we do have some pretty amazing opportunities coming your way, and I can't wait to share more with you all. While I've only been on this journey officially for a few months now, I have learned very quickly that there are some people right here in this room that really are the glue to ensuring this school board functions as it should and is the most productive. Tonight, I want to take a moment to highlight Ms. Martinez Lopez, our board clerk, and make a few formal requests. It is my understanding that her role within our school district is to support the school board members directly as our board clerk. I believe that for her to have the ability to continue to perform her job at its highest level, she needs access to a school board cell phone, one that is available to her 24/7 and can be used for all official correspondence with board members. I can understand and appreciate that this hasn't been a previous public request, but on behalf of Ms. Martinez Lopez, I do believe it is a necessity now. In addition, our school board office and mailroom has been moved to a more convenient location behind the boardroom. I would like to request on behalf of Ms. Martinez Lopez that her office be moved to that new location as well. It will make her most available for board members. Seeing as she is essentially our confidential secretary, I think it would be appropriate for her to be in our office conference room, available to us as needed. In the rare moment where a conversation would need to occur that she can't be privy to, I am confident Ms. Martinez Lopez would excuse herself. Finally, I think it would be, again, most appropriate for our board to work with district staff to update the job description for the role that Ms. Martinez Lopez sits in, so that we have well-defined expectations and limitations for her job. Firmly identifying these job descriptions will have clear boundaries for all current and future board members. I am proud of the work this board has already done, both in these public workshops and meetings, as well as in our master board trainings, and I only want to see our level of productivity continue to grow. Providing these supports to Ms. Martinez Lopez, I believe, will do just that. Dr. Gullett, I want to thank you and your entire staff for all of your time and understanding, and I look forward to timely addressing these comments and concerns I have for Ms. Martinez Lopez's position. And thank you to all of our MCPS staff for all they do each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. James. You certainly have given us some things to think about. Reverend Cummings.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, to all of you that are here tonight. Welcome back. Glad to be back for our first board meeting of this 2023 year. And thank you to our superintendent for reminding us of the upcoming MLK holiday and all the activities that's surrounding the holiday. I too want to encourage our entire community to participate in some, if not all, of these activities. There is a wide range of things that are going to be happening that involves our adults, as well as on Saturday, a huge opportunity for our youth to be involved in some great activities surrounding the MLK holiday, and those will be taking place at the new Mary Sue Rich Community Center at Reed's Place, which some of us were there today for the ribbon cutting. Truly a wonderful event. So again, I encourage everyone to participate in these MLK activities. I was sitting there listening. I heard Dr. James give some valid comments in regards to our board clerk, and I concur with her completely that I do think our board clerk should have a district phone. Many of us probably reach out to her at various hours of the day, and I would dare not want to have business things tied into my personal things. And I think as an employee, and she is the liaison for us, and there are times that we would need to call her after hours. And one scenario that I could think of is if we were going to Tampa for a conference, a school board conference, and we were checking in. How many of y'all had check-in issues or check-out issues at conferences? And who did we call? We called.
I called Kevin, actually, but.
I didn't. I called Ms. Martinez Lopez. And I think many of us, even if we did call Kevin, it ended up in Ms. Martinez Lopez's lap. So I think, and that was after 5 or before work hours. So I think we need to be considerate of her time and her privacy as well. And I concur with the comments as well as the placement too of that. Finally, I'm going to leave after my comments because there is something very pressing that I need to get to. As I looked through the board packet this week, I looked at the number of disciplinary infractions that our students are involved in. And hats off to Dr. Livingood and her team, because you guys did a tremendous job. I read every one of them. I read every infraction. I read everything down to the time. I'm looking at all of those things. And what I noticed in reading these disciplinary actions is that we had a high number of incidences that involve weapons, a high number of incidents that involve inciting or participating in major student disruptions. I'm concerned, extremely concerned, that our students are misbehaving or doing things that are so disruptive and dangerous in the educational environment. It is imperative, parents, please, I'm pleading. The Bible says, I beseech you to please get with these kids. I don't care if it's an airsoft gun or a real gun. It's a gun, and it's on campus, and it should not be on campus for any reasons. I saw an incident where a bus driver was about to be attacked. I saw some incidents where there were many students involved in a pretty much, I would call it like a melee, a little riot at our schools. These things should not be happening in our schools. And I'm one that when I read them and I'm reading the details of these incidences and I read the witness statements of these incidences, and I'm saying to myself, we have to dole out the proper consequences for these incidents. We don't want staff hurt. We don't want other students hurt. We don't want anyone hurt. So parents, please understand that if they're going to do these types of infractions on campus, that they will have some appropriate consequences that meet them. I'm looking at how many, it's just crazy that the stuff that's going on. And I'm encouraging our parents to have those conversations with these students. And I want to shout out to our staff who are dealing with this stuff on a daily basis. So please, parents, have that conversation with these kids and let them know that it will not be tolerated. And when it comes before us, we will deal with it. You will get appropriate consequence for your actions. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Reverend Cummings. Ms. Conrad.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. I'm going to piggyback off some discussion that Reverend Cummings just shared, along with discipline or lack of discipline that our school staff are having to deal with. This week in the news, there was a 6-year-old, who attacked a teacher with a weapon. It was very alarming to me because as I visit schools daily, principals are sharing with me that this is a new situation that we are dealing with here in Marion County. When I ask them, what is your biggest struggle? What's your biggest challenge? And they share with me that it's a 6 or 7-year-old that they don't have placement for, they don't have resources for. It's very concerning and it's very real. It's also very sad. As a primary teacher for over 20 years, it's hard for me to even fathom a 6 or 7-year-old with those kinds of struggles. So many of them. If we have, I'm hearing that we have several at each school. And I want to encourage that Dr. Gullett and her team, and as a board, that we are being proactive in getting things in place so we can provide support to our elementary school and schools with this new challenge with children that are struggling, I think, in relation to not having any interaction during our COVID shutdown. So anyway, that's just a concern that I've had as I've been throughout the district, and then the news this week really compounded it. So thank you, Reverend Cummings, for talking about that. I also want to share that it's not just guns. You can't take a pair of scissors and take them apart and threaten somebody with scissors either. That, you have to be respectful and accountable for your behavior, for the people that are around you and their safety. And I agree with you when I look at the discipline that's coming through, and Dr. Livingood, I appreciate all. I know it is a tremendous amount of work for what you send to us. But again, the numbers are large, and we are here to teach and educate children. And of course, we want them safe, but our main job is to educate children, and that's what we're here to do. So I encourage parents to just revisit those conversations that you usually have right before school starts, about minding your P's and Q's. Treat your neighbor as you would like to be treated. Walk away. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. Keeping yourself out of the middle of situations. Leaving that behind, because that was a little more than I had anticipated for tonight. But I do want to go back to the beginning of our meeting. Excited about our Sunshine State Scholars and what they represent. I'm so happy that they were here to share with us tonight. I also want to revisit the donation list. I just am really grateful for our community and the people that are in it supporting our schools. And when Chair Campbell read the list, it's a very diverse list of people that are participating in what is going on in our schools. And what they donate is very diverse, from books to money for computers, discretionary funds for principals, clothing and things for our resources for schools. And I'm just extremely grateful because the budget at the school level is very precise. There's not a lot of wiggle room. And so I'm grateful for these people that step forward and provide extra resources. Reverend Cummings, thank you for your team, your fraternity. I saw your name on the list. And I also wanted to give a special shout out to the parent organization at NH Jones. They raised quite a bit of money to replace the computers, the Mac lab at NH Jones, and that has been a battle I call it my school because I was there for a very lengthy time. And we couldn't get that done through our administration. And so I'm really grateful. That was a lot of work, and they were committed to getting it done. And so I see that was approved tonight. I'm happy to be a part of it, and I'm anxious to see it in use. I know the students and staff will enjoy it. I also wanted to touch, Dr. Gullett mentioned that January is mentoring month. I am a mentor. I would like to encourage you to reach out to your local schools, and be a mentor. It's not rocket science. You can show up and have lunch, ask a student about their day, how are things going. They just need another adult to check in with them. Did you do your homework this week? Can I help you with anything? So if you're interested in working one-on-one with a child, check in with your base school and see if you can assist in those programs. We worked on some fencing, some updating on fencing this week, and it just got me thinking about, we are closing in on some of our security efforts with cameras and buzzers, gates and all, and I'm just curious, what is our next task? I haven't seen that come across our desk, and so what are we tasked with as we wind up this season? Where will we move forward in the area of safety and in thinking about how to keep our students safe here in Marion County? Ms. Burgess, I want to thank you for coming today and advocating for your child. I know there's been a lot of communication back and forth with the district, and thank you for coming and speaking with us tonight. And that is all I have for this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Conrad. Vice Chair Thrower.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as I've been listening and reflecting on all of the activities and conversation tonight, it brought me back to the beginning of each board meeting when we read our commitment statement, and it states, that we will confront reality. And there's a lot of reality that we are confronting and that we will continue to face and to work through with the dignity that these challenges and the effects that they have on the whole community deserve. So while the work will be long and it will be difficult at times, with the calmness and the commitment to facing the realities that we know that we should be dealing with, I'm already very confident that we're going to come to the best outcomes. And that takes patience, that takes time, that takes collaboration, and that takes trust. I think it's a huge signal to our community that we are dedicated to having our schools, each and every school, each and every district office, anything that comes under our umbrella, be places and environments of calmness and peace that are dedicated to learning. That is 100% of what we are here for. And the vast majority of students are doing the right things every day. And I think that that's important to acknowledge, because when the infractions are so just beyond what we ever thought we would have to deal with, especially in terms of the 6-year-old that was not in this state, but does that even matter? It happened. It really gives us pause, and it can create this perception that, our schools are out of control and everything's falling apart. That couldn't be further from the truth, but a couple of bad apples can take out a pretty big barrel. So this board continues to be committed to confronting the reality of the present and working to improve the future. And with that in mind, I'm going to shift to committee reports. Our next interlocal agreement meeting is none other than Friday the 13th. And our technical working group will be assembling again also with Attorney Powers to try to work out some of the final details of the updated draft contract language, We all want to come up with an interlocal agreement that is going to move us forward in everything that we know that we need in terms of schools, and making sure that every avenue to be able to, build them and staff them is open to us. So I'm looking forward to that conversation coming up January 13th. I don't know why I put February 13th. It's January 13th. And thanks to Ms. Burgess for coming tonight and sharing. I also am aware of this situation, and we do have, it just makes sense. This is another confronting reality. We have a lot of kids with special needs. We work very hard to serve them. Our kids with the most significant needs are served in classrooms with a teacher, 2 paras, and no more than 6 to 8 students, ideally. So these kids don't magically lose the need for close supervision and being on a schedule and visual supports and planned breaks and unique accommodations just because a bell rang and the school day is over. So I think it is time to acknowledge, in the old days, Maplewood pretty much covered it, but I think the need was always there. And so thank you for, continuing to shine the light. And I'm very hopeful that, we can confront that reality and begin to put some other places to serve our kids that we know need it, and parents and teachers that we know need it, that want to continue to serve us even after school and beyond their contract hours to help kids. So thank you for that, Ms. Burgess. And there are so many cool things going on. We're going to have Literacy Week coming up. I think a lot of us have been contacted to read for Literacy Week. Many very, very uplifting things. We have some great financial support behind us. I feel like the items that get placed under discussion that none of us have pulled are maybe a little bit of a hint, from staff and Dr. Gullett, that they've been put under discussion maybe for a reason. And so I think it is good to have a bit of conversation, not just for the financial impact, which is huge on several of those tonight, but just even more importantly, how that helps us as a district help kids. So I look forward to seeing those continue to be placed so that we can acknowledge them. And finally, it's hard to thank everybody enough. No matter where you sit in public education today, you're going to be challenged. And I'd like to give a special thank you to district staff tonight. This board, because we are very committed and really care, we ask a lot of questions. We go deep. We make phone calls. Sometimes I'm concerned even within myself. I know I don't always get it right. I'm sure I drift out of my lane and into the more operational day-to-day, which is our wonderful superintendent. And we do need to continue to give her the opportunity to lead and let her unfold all of the initiatives that she's working on. Sometimes there is a lot of benefit to getting the heck out of the way and letting things unfold. And while it may not be at our pace because we're so interested and committed to making a lot of great things happen fast because we know that's what's best for kids, all these initiatives, I think it's important to keep in mind that it's not up to any single one of us to shoulder the whole load. And, many hands make for light work. So, and here they sit, but we get 2 weeks after 2 weeks. So I just wanted to give you that acknowledgement, and everyone up here, and that does include Ms. Martinez-Lopez, plays a significant role in helping every student succeed. So that's where we start from, that's where we work through, and that's where I'll end with. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Board. We've had a lot of feedback and commentary tonight, and I'm certainly grateful for that. I want to start my comments by saying welcome back to students and to staff. Happy New Year. I know I've said Happy New Year multiple times, but I'm continuing to say Happy New Year to everybody I encounter because it is a new year and we are excited. But I will start with committee reports, actually, and for last evening, serving as a non-voting member of the City of Ocala's Planning and Zoning Committee, or Commission, excuse me, I wanted you all to be aware of something that came before the commission last evening. The West Oaks community, that is the former Pine Oaks Golf Course, came before Planning and Zoning. You may be familiar with this. It's been 4 or 5 years that they've been working on it, but they made a request last evening to change what they currently have in their PUD plan, and it is to move from 386 single-family residents to 170 single-family residents. So that sounds like a positive for us. However, they're also requesting to move from 832 multifamily residents to 1,980 multifamily units. This specific request will be going before City Council in February. What that means is 218 College Park students, 95 Howard Middle School students, 107 Vanguard students, and those 416 students will actually be a 31 student increase from the original approval. However, I also have to make all of us aware, as we are aware, that those are all based on previous study student generation numbers. So we're all waiting on our new study, and the student generation numbers may look very different, actually. I also wanted to make you aware that in that application, it also noted that they will be paying $451,633 in transportation concurrency. And as you are aware, we don't currently have impact fees or concurrency for the school district. So just as a point of note, more than $450,000 for transportation concurrency because of the impacts that that development will have on transportation, yet the 416 students that will be put in Marion County Public Schools currently does not have a calculation to ensure that we also receive something. Just a point of note. Okay, moving on to my comments. So thank you for bringing up the Mary Sue Rich Community Center at Reed Place today, as well as the Martin Luther King Day activities that are coming up. I know the breakfast is Saturday in that very center, and the parade is on Monday. I know I personally RSVP'd to Ms. Jenkins yesterday for the breakfast, but I was curious, perhaps, I'm not certain where the banner is that we use during the Christmas parade, but maybe, or the Christmas parades, but maybe we can use that to walk in the parade on Monday as well. So maybe we can just get that coordinated over the next week. And we also need to just kind of collaborate on what time we're meeting and where we're meeting and all of those kinds of things. So this isn't something the board will vote on. This is something we're just participating in the community. So traditionally, Reverend Cummings has just sent us, meet me at such and such a place. So board, be expecting that, because Reverend Cummings, I'm asking you to be our point of contact on where you want us to meet and all of that. So I'm excited about walking on that.
I can tell you right now, we're always at the front.
We're always at the front. So we'll just need to make sure we have the banner that gets there with us somehow. And I know it went in my car, but it can go in whomever's car. You want to carry the banner with us like we did?
Yeah, because a lot of people do that. They represent their groups. And usually we end up meeting right on the corner there across from Mark's Prime.
Yeah, across from Mark's Prime.
Area, or right on the corner by Mark's Prime.
At about what time do you think we should meet? Just to ensure that we're there. No, ensure that we're
starts
there.
at 8.
So that's what I'll let you send us in a text. How about, if that'll work?
Early, which can be fun.
Okay, perfect. So, and I haven't looked at the weather, but it's usually the coldest day of the year.
You always say be there early.
Okay.
People, and you come up right when it's time to
go. A couple more comments. So we did have our legislative delegation meeting. Thank you to the team for helping us put together the handy dandy little pocket guides. That was great. I love the unified front that the school board puts out with our superintendent. And it was interesting this year. We did receive some questions from our legislators. So I think that was at least first in the last few years that we've actually had questions. I know that the team is working on ensuring that we get those questions answered for the legislators. But I also wanted to make a note, the Marion County Day, I believe, is coming at the end of March, and that's when all of Marion County government goes up, which I do think it would be great if we had the opportunity to at least kind of tag along on that. And as we know, the Florida School Board Association legislative days are also coming up during our spring break. So as I was speaking with someone today, I think it would be good for the board to choose our own time frame to visit our legislators. We certainly can tag on to those others, and I would recommend us do that if we are not going somewhere on spring break, et cetera. But I would like for us to commit to talk about some dates and times possibly in our very next work session following what we're talking about the calendar. If we have enough time that day to talk about some dates and times and coordinate maybe some options when we all could go up, it probably would be an overnight stay. We'd need to kind of talk through that. Maybe not, might not have to be. But so let's just kind of commit to talk through that in our next work session, board, please. A couple of other things for the community. We have a parent partnership event coming up this Saturday. I know some of us will be at the Martin Luther King breakfast on Saturday morning at 9 a.m., but the parent partnership event is also happening at Bellevue High School from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., so maybe we can pop by there afterwards. Also, just because Mr. Ayers, I know, would love for us to make note of this, the school choice window is currently open. We have options in our district for school choice, and that window is open right now for those who are interested in applying for our magnet programs. That school choice window closes on January 31st. And I also saw on our social media, and so make sure you take a look, but all of our choice programs are having open houses. So parents, please take note of those. If you are interested, families, in learning more about any of our choice programs, please take a look at those and visit those open houses so you can learn more, so you can get your application in by January 31st. I know I was talking to a parent today who wasn't really aware and needed to have more information. And so just parents, make sure that you are aware of that. Also wanted to say thank you, as the other board members have, to Ms. Burgess for coming tonight. I also wanted to say thank you to Dr. Hembrook and Ms. Eubanks, because I know they have already done a cost analysis and there's some work that has already been done on that. If it's okay, Dr. Gullett, I would like to see that Dr. Hembrook and Ms. Eubanks actually share that out with the full board, because I had asked for that some time ago and I'm not certain that the full board has seen that. But if that's something that we want to pursue, we need to take a look at what that looks like. But I hear your comments. Certainly, Ms. Burgess, I understand the concerns and I understand the need for it. It is something that we'll need to take a look at potentially in the future. So Dr. Gullett, if you can have that. I also wanted to just to tag on to what other folks have mentioned. I want, this is just my comments alone. Certainly I appreciate the discussion about our board clerk and her amazing work that she does and her duties and potential privileges, as we've heard this evening. But I also understand that she serves at the pleasure of the superintendent. So I'm not certain that we as the board need to dictate necessarily how the superintendent chooses to handle that position or the responsibilities or the resources to it. So again, it's a position. Ms. Martinez Lopez is amazing and does terrific work for us. Just want to ensure that, as Vice Chair Thrower kind of was saying, not veering across our lane, because that is that position is not a position that the board actually staffs, or the only two staff members that the board has are the school board attorney and the superintendent. Beyond that, every other employee of this district serves at the pleasure of the superintendent, and she has operational authority over, just for commentary. Also wanted to note that we approved an updated job description this evening. We approved several, but specifically I wanted to note the Director of Technology and Information Systems. As we continue to enhance technological capabilities in this district, that role is going to become even more vital in helping every student succeed. And as it's posted, I encourage anyone with credentials and experience who could serve in this critical position in our operations to please consider applying for that job. It is vital to where we're heading to make sure every student succeeds. And the last thing that I will mention before addressing expulsion matters is to state something about expulsion matters. We now have a public-facing document listed at item 20.1. It shows a breakdown of the offenses of the 59 students that are going to be considered for alternative placement or expulsion this evening. I think that's incredibly important as we move forward in a community conversation about safety and security in our schools as well as discipline, that the public is starting to be aware of the discipline issues we're dealing with. More so than just our commentary, but have a public-facing document that says, these are the offenses of these 59 students, and if they're in elementary, middle, or high school, and what potentially the consequences were. I will note one thing that was startling to me is 17 of them are for drug offenses. And that concludes my comments. So before addressing expulsion matters, I wish to acknowledge that board members have received the alternative placement list for students through December 2nd, 2022. Ms. Martinez-Lopez, are there any parents who've submitted a timely request to speak on their child's disciplinary matter?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez-Lopez. May I have a motion to approve the expulsion of student JD 23-0052, JD 23-0059E, JD 23-0067, JD 23-0068E, JD 22-0069, JD 23-0070E, JD 23-0072E, JD 23-0073E, JD 23-0074, JD 23-0075, JD 23-0076, JD 23-0077E, JD 23-0078, JD 23-0079, JD 23-0080, JD 23-0081E, JD 23-0082, JD 23-0083, JD 23-0084E, JD 23-0085, JD 23-0086, JD 23-0087, JD 23-0088E, JD 23-0090, JD 23-0091, JD 23-0094, and JD 23-0096E with educational services for the remainder of the 2022-2023 school year and the first semester of the 2023-2024 school year. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, excuse me. If you could please repeat JD 22-0069 should actually be JD 23-0069.
Thank you.
For the record.
For the record, the motion will include JD 23-0069 and not JD 22-0069.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
For the record, may I have a motion?
Motion to approve the expulsion of the following students that you read into the record.
Motion by Vice Chair Thrower.
Second.
Second by Ms. Conrad. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to approve the expulsion of student JD 23-0095 and JD 23-0097 with educational services for the remainder of the 2022-2023 school year and the entire 2023-2024 school year. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Conrad, second by Reverend Cummings. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to approve the expulsion of JD 23-0098 with educational services for the remainder of the 2022-2023 school year? May I have a motion?
So move.
Motion by Reverend Cummings,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Thrower. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. And I believe that concludes this portion of our meeting. We will be recessing for a portion of the meeting that will not be televised. So with that, I will recess our meeting for this student disciplinary matters that we will be addressing after the video has stopped. And meeting is recessed at 7:27 p.m.